The ripple effect. Sarah never meant to start a revolution of kindness. It began on an ordinary Tuesday morning at Pete's coffee shop, where she stopped for her usual Americano before work. The line was longer than normal, and she could feel the collective impatience of the customers behind her. In front of her stood an elderly man, his hands trembling slightly as he counted out change from a worn leather wallet. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I thought I had enough." His face flushed with embarrassment as he realized he was short by several dollars. Without hesitation, Sarah stepped forward. "I've got it," she said, pulling out her credit card. "Add his order to mine, please." The old man turned to her, his eyes bright with surprise. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly order it. Please," Sarah insisted with a warm smile. "It would make my day." What Sarah didn't know was that among the impatient customers behind her was Marcus Chen, a local journalist who had been having the worst morning of his career. His latest story had been rejected, his car had broken down, and he'd just had an argument with his teenage daughter before dropping her off at school. The simple act of kindness he witnessed made him pause, and suddenly his problems seemed less overwhelming. That afternoon, instead of writing another exposure, Marcus wrote about what he'd seen at the coffee shop. He interviewed the barista, who revealed that the elderly man was Mr. Patterson, a retired high school teacher who had recently lost his wife and came to the coffee shop every Tuesday because it had been their tradition for 40 years. The story went viral locally, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was so ordinary. It reminded people of their own capacity for kindness. A week later, Sarah returned to Pete's coffee shop to find a wall near the counter covered with colourful sticky notes. Each one had a message: coffee for a stressed student, a muffin for someone who needs it, tea and sympathy for a rough day. People had been prepaying for drinks and snacks, leaving notes for strangers to claim when needed. Mr. Patterson was there too, but this time he wasn't counting change. He was adding his own sticky note to the wall. The movement spread beyond the coffee shop. A local grocery store started a suspended groceries program, where people could prepay for basic necessities that others could claim anonymously. The high school where Mr. Patterson had taught initiated a kindness committee, organizing students to help elderly neighbors with yard work and errands. Sarah's simple act had created a ripple effect, but the real power lay in how it transformed the people involved. Marcus began to repair his relationship with his daughter by asking her to help him document acts of kindness in their community. Mr. Patterson found new purpose in organizing a reading program for children at the coffee shop, sharing his love of literature just as he had with his late wife. The baristas at Pete's noticed that customers smiled more, complained less, and often lingered to chat with strangers. The sticky note wall became a symbol of hope, a reminder that everyone struggles sometimes, and everyone has the power to help. One day, about 6 months later, Sarah was running late for work and almost skipped her coffee stop. But something made her turn into Pete's, where she found a young woman staring at the sticky note wall, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked gently. The woman wiped her eyes. "I just lost my job and I've been walking around for hours, feeling like a failure. Then I saw this wall and—" She gestured to the hundreds of colourful notes, each representing a stranger's kindness. "It reminded me that I'm not alone." Sarah reached for her wallet, but before she could, Mr. Patterson appeared beside them. "Ladies," he said with a warm smile, "your drinks are covered today." He pointed to a yellow sticky note that read, "Coffee and conversation for anyone who needs a friend." They sat together for an hour, 3 strangers sharing stories and support. The young woman, Amanda, turned out to be a talented graphic designer. Mr. Patterson knew someone at his old school looking for help with their website. Sarah's company sometimes hired freelancers. Connections were made, hope was restored, all because people chose kindness over indifference. As Sarah finally headed to work that morning, she thought about how she never meant to start anything big. She had just wanted to help an elderly man who reminded her of her own grandfather. But that's the thing about kindness. It doesn't need to be big or planned or perfect. It just needs to be genuine. The revolution of kindness that began at Pete's coffee shop never made national headlines. It didn't solve all the world's problems or erase all the pain and loneliness in people's lives. But it did create a space where people remembered their shared humanity, where small acts of generosity rippled outward in ways no one could predict. Years later, when asked about that Tuesday morning, Sarah would simply shrug and say, "I just did what anyone would do." But the wall of sticky notes at Pete's coffee shop, now extending across 3 walls and inspiring similar movements in coffee shops across the country, testified to something more profound. In a world that often feels divided and harsh, kindness is still the most revolutionary act of all. And it all starts with one person, one moment, one choice to see another's need and respond with an open heart.